Alright, found these at Walmart today after several people said they were out. A friend of mine, my friend Rick, found a STARSCREAM at a Walmart across town, and so when I got home from work I ran out and found one set of each left at the Walmart near me. So I checked a different Walmart on the way to work this morning, and on the way home found these guys. Another one. Still no new studio series like the Scrap Metal and Cogman and those yet. And Shatter. I do want to get Shatter. But we did find the new Siege, STARSCREAM, and Soundwave. Here's STARSCREAM, and he's kind of meh. I mean, like, he's not horrible. But he's not my favorite of the Siege line. And some of it is just tolerances and design issues with the toy. When they're kind of going back to Cybertron. He's kind of Tetrajet-y, but really not. He looks more like a Viper from Battlestar Galactica. You can see his whole chest on the back here, and that is problem number one. That's actually the biggest problem I have with him, because this chest panel, it's on these two hinges, and you have to kind of pull it down and around. But watch, I mean, if you want, as soon as you untab it, it comes right off, especially one of these tabs, because it's on this hinge right here, but the hinge side of it, like one side has a little divot, and the other side doesn't even, let me see if I can get this on here. The other side isn't even deep enough to cover the entire half. Like, you can see, like, look at that. That's all the way clipped on, and you can see the inside on each side leaves over half of that exposed. So it's only being held by the friction of this piece pushing outward. And this joint is stiff enough that, like, you're going to need more leverage to get this joint to move, way more leverage to get this joint to move than it takes to just pop this right off. This chest piece is going to pop off on a lot of you. Now, somebody is probably going to come along and do a video with, if you grab it here and just like this and pray to whatever God you believe in and fold it just right, it won't pop off. And it may be possible to do that. And some of them may have tighter tolerances, but, like, this is a bad design. This should have at least had a clip on, a full-size clip on both sides of that joint, not this half measure here that really, like I said, on my side, I guess the right side of his chest, for his right side, just does not have enough friction. Now, I might be able to hit this with this side's actually pretty tight, but this side likes to pop right off. But the problem is, with the force you're using to move this hinge, if this side comes loose, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort for this side to come off too. So just that's my first complaint, is this chest piece. I guess we can just go ahead and leave that open for transformation. And the other part is just design, but we'll show it off in a minute. So go ahead and untab his guns. That just gets him out of the way for transformation. There may be a way to leave these attached to his upper arms here while we transform it, but it really isn't worth it. Just take them off and set them to the side. So the whole ship is a shell. You can kind of see, here's his arms, his legs, his torso, his body. You could take the entire top shell of this off and still have a STARSCREAM, albeit without his little shoulder vents or his wings. So we do that. Go ahead and pop the wings off. Now the wings, when the arms are folded out, these wings do tab into the top of the arm, and then the side of the arm is pegged onto the legs here like this. And it's kind of confusing the first time you do it. The side with only 2 slots in it is the one that goes on the side of his body, and this slot up here that has 3 slots is what the wing pegs into. It's not super clear, so you might be trying to plug this side onto this because it looks like it should fit. It doesn't. You need to keep rotating this forearm so these match up. Then you just untab the forearms here. This whole, you can see, like, there's the whole ship right here, assembly. And you can fold that around to the back here and tab that on right there. There's his head. But, like, basically, here's the spaceship, here's the robot. He's kind of doing a Pete Townsend slide. Yeah! Anyway. So untab the legs. The legs is kind of loosely, this slot tabs in right here. Something neat about his design is that he does, despite the fact that he folds up and his thighs go into his legs, he does have spring-loaded pieces that fill in his legs. So they're not hollow. They could have just been hollow, but they designed these neat little spring-engineered covers to pop out when he turns into robot mode. You don't have to do anything. That's actually really nice. So it's 50-50 here on the engineering. Because you can see this is already, just from moving this around, this side is already coming loose on that hinge. You just open up his feet, Pretty standard stuff there. Lift this out far enough that you can rotate his waist around, like that. Now you can kind of push this hinge down. This seems like it's probably not going to be as bad. It goes really tight in that slot, and then clip that together to form his chest. Bring this back out. Now flip his head up, and what's weird is, in order to transform him, you flip his head up, and then there's this tab that locks his head into place, but it doesn't really, I don't know if that's just to keep it from rotating in there so it doesn't jam up, and that may actually be it, which is, I guess, is kind of clever. But when you're going back to jet mode, you do have to flip this panel up, tab it into the back of his head, which is kind of like a neck brace, and I bet you that's it. I bet you that's so his head doesn't rotate and get stuck in there when you're transforming him. But you flip that up, and then take this little piece down and just kind of fold it up into that slot. Bring this whole assembly up. Actually, split this. The nose cone here is what? You shouldn't be that hard to split. Come on. You just tab together. It's not. This isn't locked. There we go. That tab, that's a super tight tab. So these pieces flip up and rotate around up here, and that's what becomes his shoulder vents, which is kind of a neat idea. And you can see where this tab's going to go into this slot. You lower this down and tab it onto his back like that, after which you can kind of bring the wings around. They are on hinges, so you can angle them a little bit. They don't have to be static like this. If you want to have them a little bit more dynamic behind him, you've got that. And then, like I said, the thruster folds around and sits here on his back. And then the arms, just bring the shoulders in, extend them at the elbow, open up the side panel, and flip out his fist. Close it back up. And you're done with the arms. The instructions say to fold this up with the panel open. It's maybe a little easier, but I honestly have had no trouble just collapsing that together. I guess that does pop that open a little bit more, but you just lift that up, fold that closed, and then put his null rays on his shoulders. And there is a chunky Starscream, or not chunky, blocky, I guess is what I should say. He's very squarish. He does look a little better because, like I said, with the wings being able to pose a little bit, he's not as horrible. You can move him back a little bit. You can angle him up. So he's a little bit more dynamic than initial pictures made him look. He's not my favorite of the two. Plus, he has all this war damage all over him. I'll probably work on taking that off. Although here, he is clearly going to have, like on Optimus, a lot of it was just on red plastic. Here, he actually has some silver damage on top of blue paint. And that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So yeah, he's got a ball-jointed head, although the squareness of it, I guess you can actually look up pretty decently. But a ball-jointed head, dual-jointed shoulders. You can see they rotate there and there. Bicep swivel, dual-hinged elbows that almost fold all the way up, all the way except for this peg here. He does have a waist swivel. That's kind of neat. They have a little orange piece underneath here to match up with that, but he can turn his waist. You may need to lift this up to get it a full turn. Angle that chest piece back. Stay together. Dual hinge hips. Thigh swivel. Standard knee, which can go a little past 90 depending on how you have the backpack. He does have some minor degree of ankle tilt here. And then you've got the toe pieces, but they basically just flare open and allow him to stand. There really isn't a whole lot of significant articulation in the toe. With his other cohorts, here he is with other Siege Decepticons, Shockwave and Megatron. We'll show him off with Soundwave in the Soundwave video, because Soundwave currently is still sitting over here in spaceship mode, which we'll get to. So yeah, he fits in. He's about the right size, a smidge shorter than Shockwave, a little bit shorter than Megatron, but looks in. I still think Megatron's a great figure. Is my favorite of the Decepticons, maybe Flywheels, but Starscream, I want to like him more than I do. And if this hinge right here wasn't so poorly designed, I'd probably have less of a complaint against him. He is basically fold up his body and then wrap the spaceship shell around him, but we knew that. I mean, it was disappointing to see it at first. It didn't surprise me getting him out of the package because we've seen shots of him for Geez, when did we first see Siege? Was it Comic-Con last year? We've seen pictures of him out for a while. And so we kind of knew what we were getting with this guy. He is a little bit more dynamic. He doesn't seem quite as brick-like as he looked in a lot of pictures. And he does have some good joints. There's some neat engineering, especially with these calf pieces that spring out. Like I said, my biggest complaint is I wish this hinge were a little better designed up here on the top of his body, because that's the only thing really keeping him from being a solid figure. Regardless of how you feel about him being very shell-formery, and I'm not big on that either, he'd be a much more solid figure if this were not poorly designed and destined to just pop off. It's not going to break. There's that, I guess. But I just feel like that could have been a little more secure. Anyway, enough about that. He's worth picking up if you're a fan of STARSCREAM, if you're collecting the Siege line. He's not horrible. He is shell-formery, and there is that hinge. That's what I want you to be aware of if you go out to the store and pick him up. I do think Soundwave's the better of the two, but he's not a horrible figure.